Some of the studies have used experimental designs like this one. The difference in difference designs aren't experiments. They're basically looking at phase-ins or policy changes. Regression discontinuity is also some just pre-existing test score cutoff or something. So definitely try, and instrumental variables too. Instrumental variables aren't humans experimenting. So 3/4 or 4/5 of the methods or something are non-experimental. We've certainly emphasized experiments just because they've had a lot of impact and they're an important part of the debate. And until recently we didn't have those. So I hope we tried to kind of show different ones. But you raise the question of outsiders coming in telling people what to do in general. But again, it goes back to this question: like, how can you promote CDD as an outsider without effectively telling people what to do? And is there just an inherent contradiction there? And I think that's the issue. Yeah. 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 I think the concern about that, I think you could definitely find communities that have tons of local participation that look like the model of CDD and have great outcomes, and you can compare them to other areas. But the concern with that is there could just be 10 other things that are different about those villages. I think the idea with experimentation, even though you come in from the outside and you're in that sense breaking the sort of local bottom-up approach, is if you just say, hey, there are areas where things are good and there's areas where things are bad, and I'm going to attribute it to something when I might attribute it to 10 other things, becomes harder, I think. And it doesn't mean that it isn't those decision-making processes that weren't critical. Maybe they were, but there's a lot of room for skepticism because of all the omitted variables. So it's a tricky issue. It's a very tricky issue. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry, you're skeptical. Well, maybe that's part of the education here at Berkeley. We're supposed to make you skeptical, and you should be skeptical. I think I've said this before. If people are totally unconstrained in how they analyze data, there's a lot of degrees of freedom. And it goes back to the question before about experiments. There's, obviously experiments aren't immune to this, because here we show that you can mine even an experiment. But if you can, at least an experiment, you're always going to regress your outcome on like the treatment dummy. At least there's some constraint placed on the econometric specification. But in a non-experiment, you've got 50 potential outcomes, 50 potential right-hand side variables, and now all of a sudden you could kind of mine it even more. And so there's a big movement. I'll mention things, and then I'll kind of go on to the next point. But there's a movement to have a study registry for pre-analysis plans, basically, that the American Economics Association agreed to last year. So there's actually a movement afoot to basically allow or encourage people to register analysis plans beforehand. The American Political Science Association is planning to do the same thing. They're discussing it in the experimental section of APSA and so on. So there's this big movement towards more and more skepticism of empirical work, and I think this paper is just kind of a reflection of that skepticism in some sense in highlighting these concerns. Okay, so what are some possible interpretations? One interpretation, it gets back to the point before about, I don't want to overstretch, but I also don't want to shy from saying what the possibilities are. So a possible interpretation is when donors come in, they can change family A, but they can't easily change family B in a few years. They can come in and build stuff. They can get money and engineers and other things and build roads and build schools, and they can do that. But to think that outsiders can come in and transform local institutions in a few years seems harder to do, if it's even desirable. I mean, there's a separate issue of whether outsiders, just because they're rich, should have the right to sort of manipulate local institutions or do other things. And a kind of secondary point in trying to understand the results or the non-results in Sierra Leone has to do with the setting that existed in Sierra Leone and the very strong position of traditional chiefs in villages. So this is a setting where this wasn't a vacuum. It wasn't like people came in and set up village development committees in a vacuum. There were very well-established, strong traditional institutions in existence, and the new institutions met a ton of resistance from the existing institutions. Exactly what you would think would happen. So it may not. We have to think through the institutions, the history, and the setting before designing these programs. And that suggests maybe results of a program like Robifo would be different elsewhere, where there were different local institutions. Maybe in a place where there weren't as strong traditional chiefs, a new village development committee would have more sway or more influence because they wouldn't be sort of running up against such a strong authority. But this is all kind of hypothetical. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What do you think? What's your thought on that? What is the? Yeah. Yeah. Sure. I mean, the program was designed as a pilot. That was really the goal. And the question was, eventually, would the government scale this up more broadly? So it was going to be a pilot with a certain budget that the bank was funding. Of course, the amount of money spent on research is like some tiny share of the overall budget. The research design comes in to get a kind of treatment control groups. But the program, regardless of our involvement or the sort of data collection teams in Statistics Sierra Leone or whatnot, there was always going to be a subgroup of people who were going to get funded. And then you can ask the question, should governments do that? Should governments target to subgroups? Of course, governments do that all the time in every country. This was a government program. This was run out of the government IRCBP. This was the Institutional Reform and Capacity Building Project in the Decentralization Secretariat of Government of Sierra Leone, funded by the World Bank, mostly. But there was government staffing. It was a government program, in an elected government. So, you could ask questions about whether that may not change the ethics that it was a Sierra Leone government program or not. But if you have a concern about concentrating assistance on a subgroup, that should be the same, maybe whether it's a donor or the government. But it was a government of Sierra Leone project. And our staff, our kind of research staff working on it, were basically consultants to the government of Sierra Leone. That was the arrangement. Of course, everybody wants to get aid. I don't think the communities in the control group were thrilled they weren't getting aid. There was some intervention. I didn't talk about the details here. All of they're called wards, which are collections of villages, where there was any treatment community, got some ward-level projects as well, especially for things that were sort of like connecting villages, roads between villages, things like that. So even in the control groups, there were some of these like larger-scale infrastructure projects also funded through GoBifo, and then only a subset of wards were even in the GoBifo project at all. So even the control group were getting some small benefits, but obviously nothing like the scale of the treatment communities. Yeah.
I don't see an ethical question because both the control groups and the treatment groups equal. I mean, you're still getting the same amount of infrastructure and possibilities, both, right?
Only in the final exercise, but
yeah, the difference was
only in the final exercise.
Well, the rate of based on whether or not they got these workshops and institutional things, which was the question of whether those were effective anyway, and the science shows said that those weren't effective. So you think that the 8 money in terms of running those should be upset.
Yeah. I mean, this is a general concern that comes up with every experiment. I mean, if there's concentrated aid, what are the ethics of it? And I think it's a tricky issue to handle because you could turn it around. There's a lot of programs where people give like child support programs where you get a picture of someone. I mean, literally hundreds of thousands of kids or millions of kids in poor countries get these sorts of programs, and someone in the U.S. gives hundreds of dollars a year to this one kid. Now, hundreds of dollars a year is a hell of a lot of money. You can make the exact same thing. All those child support programs could be unethical. Maybe they are. Maybe all that money should be spread out more widely. Maybe it should be distributed totally differently. And you can kind of go on with a lot of programs. So it's a tricky question to understand. And and with some programs, the sort of ethical issues have changed the nature of programs. So there's this very famous evaluation of this program in Mexico, Progresa, this famous anti-poverty program in Mexico. The initial phase-in was randomized, et cetera. But shortly after that, like the randomization ended, and it was just rolled out nationally, and it was just felt to be politically impossible to be doing these pilots again and again. And I think we understand that from politics, say in the U.S., where again, if there was a subgroup of people benefiting, there's going to be some bitterness. That's in the U.S. now. There are programs where pilots are randomized. It is more standard. There was a hand in the back, or was it a phantom hand? Okay. So we spent a little more time than I thought we would on this one. I'm really glad because I think we got to a lot of really important topics and issues. I want to transition to the last topic, so we have kind of a lecture and a lecture and a half to talk about this. There's 4 or 5 articles on the reading list for this last, including some shorter ones on this last topic. I want to get to success stories. Now, by shifting to success stories, I don't mean to say the word success stories we already talked about. We just, you might think of Bodifo as a success story. This was a program that led to the building of all these public goods. You may think of the de-risking project as a success story. You could think of, all the massive, changes in macroeconomic policy or, liberalization of markets or other things as success stories. There's a lot of potential success stories, but I'm going to focus on 2 really, really big success stories that everybody talks about all the time when they talk about African development. And if you are going to think about African development and sort of know something about this area, you have to sort of understand these cases. So, the kind of, success, the overall success story, again, is this big increase in growth and income and sort of the various poverty reduction successes of the last 12, 13 years. Some of the kind of specific cases I want to get into are the following. First, talking about mobile phones. When people talk about the economic transformation or the transformation of markets in sub-Saharan Africa, people talk about mobile phones. It is ubiquitous, the discussion, and potentially important. And then the second case I want to talk about, we're going to get to next time, is the country case of Botswana, which even in the 70s and 80s, when the rest of sub-Saharan Africa wasn't experiencing much growth, was growing extremely rapidly and was more or less democratic, or at least much more democratic than its neighbors. So it was a country that had a very different trajectory than most of its neighbors. So the Botswana case is important to understand. It's less exceptional than it was before. When I started teaching this class, a decade ago or whatnot, that was before the economic turnaround. We had all this grim news and say, but Botswana, what happened in Botswana? And now it's sort of like, there's been 10 or 15 good years in lots of countries, and so Botswana doesn't feel like as exceptional a case. But its history is interesting, and it's still a case worth thinking about and looking at. So let's turn to mobile technology, and we're going to go for a clicker question. And I just want to get people sort of baseline assessment before we start talking about mobile issues, about what role the mobile transformation, the spread of cell phone networks, the spread of cell phones has played in sub-Saharan Africa in driving the turnaround we've seen since about 2000. It turns out the timing of the spread of cell phones corresponds pretty closely with the turnaround in growth. So the timing more or less coincides. So A, the spread of mobile phones just hasn't contributed. It's sort of irrelevant. B, it's made people happier. I really like the text. I like to look at Facebook on my phone. It's awesome, but maybe it hasn't had much of an economic impact. C, it's been critical. D, we can't generalize. And E, it's too early to say. And I want to get people's kind of baseline sense of this. Okay, so this is kind of as striking a distribution, I think, as we've had this term. So 3/4 of you think it's contributed a lot. So that's really interesting. And then others say maybe varies a lot. So only one person said it hasn't contributed. If you want to talk about it, we can. But if you don't want to, that's fine. Do you want to raise your hand if you did A and give me the kind of explanation for why? You don't have to, though. Maybe this is okay. I understand. Who wants to be the 1 person out of 80 slaying people? I thought someone was going to do B. Maybe that was too tongue-in-cheek. But, tweeting makes you happy. Okay, so what are the kind of patterns? I'm going to spend just 5 minutes showing you graphs. You've probably seen them in newspapers, The Economist, whatever. But they're still striking and still worth going through. These are actually some figures I got from a presentation Jenny Aker gave here on campus last year. And they're a couple years out of date. They go through around 2009 or 10, but still pretty striking. So the most striking fact, and everybody knows this, is just how incredibly quickly cell phones have spread in poor countries and in rich countries, including the world's poorest countries. So I think when cell phone towers started going up around South Asia in the late 90s and Sub-Saharan Africa around 2000, etc., I think people thought, well, if they're going to spread, urban elites will have them. But there was even a feeling, you guys may remember, like the mid-90s, early to mid-90s in the US, to get a cell phone, it's kind of like you're kind of yuppie, it's kind of a snobbish thing to do. You think you're really cool. It was a status symbol. It was like in the early 90s, it was a status symbol, very much a status symbol to have a cell phone. So I think people sort of prior on this, or their view on this when cell phones started expanding in poor countries was, well, some people will get them, but it's going to be limited to the urban elite. That was kind of the initial view. I think that would have been very widely held starting 2000 about cell phones. But that isn't what happens. So if you actually look at first just cell coverage, this is cell coverage in 99, and you can just see the kind of, there's basically cell coverage in Sub-Saharan Africa, in Johannesburg, Durban, and Cape Town, and, not too much elsewhere. And then you just go 10 years later and you see a lot of expansion, and you see it in West Africa, you see it in East Africa, and since then, this was 2008, it's expanded even much more. So cell coverage has just exploded, and the numbers of people say, this is again just a not great font, but, in 1999, only 10% of the population of Sub-Saharan Africa lived in places with cell coverage. So very few people, in some cities, and 10 years later, 60%, and now it's much higher. So, you go in a decade from almost no one having coverage to, most people now, like the vast majority of people, living in a place with cell phone coverage. That's a huge infrastructure change. We've been talking about decaying infrastructure. We've been talking about all kinds of public investments that weren't made, et cetera, in Sub-Saharan Africa since independence. Well, this was an investment that's been made incredibly quickly, and subscribers have followed. This is the same thing another way. Mobile coverage in 99. Again, South Africa has almost nowhere else has more than say 20% coverage. 5 years later, a lot of places have a lot of coverage. By 2009, tons of coverage, now even more. So it isn't just a couple countries. It's just widespread mobile coverage. So I think you guys are pretty familiar with this, but it is striking to see such a stark change in infrastructure in a decade. Imagine if railroads have gone from there being no railroads to all of Africa having railroads in 10 years. We get that with cell coverage. Okay, two other noteworthy patterns I want you to keep in mind as you think about this literature, as you read the Acre piece. There's something really amazing about mobile phones in sub-Saharan Africa and other poor countries. First, we have leapfrogging. In many cases, we have people in the poorest countries of the world starting out with very advanced new technologies that in some cases even surpass the technologies that most people use in rich countries. So the most obvious thing is leapfrogging over landlines to cell phones. I remember, and this was like in the early 2000s, all my friends in Kenya, and I was traveling to Kenya, parts of Tanzania with cell phones, etc. Everybody was texting. Everybody had these sophisticated ways to communicate that, like, we weren't texting in the US in 2002, 2003. And people, there were. And it's something that obviously has caught on here later. But more than that, more than just going to a new device, there's been a lot of technological innovation in this sector in poor countries, which is flowing to rich countries. And this goes against the model we usually think of. We usually think of, these folks in Silicon Valley, the richest part, one of the richest parts of the world in per capita terms, coming up with these incredible gadgets and then bestowing them on the grateful masses. I mean, I'm happy for Apple. I'm really happy. They bestowed it on me. I'm delighted. But this isn't how it's worked with mobile technology in many cases. So the most famous case is the technology for mobile money transfers, which the first commercial mobile money product was developed in Kenya in 2007, immediately took off, and now is starting to flow back here. But for years now, it's been 6 years, it's been infinitely easier to transfer money cell phone to cell phone in Kenya than the US. We still haven't caught up. And now dozens of poor countries also have mobile money products that just reduce transactions costs, make it so much easier to do business than would be the case otherwise. So that is really interesting. Another example here, and it's not quite a sub-Saharan African example purely, but if you think back to the use of a related technology, you think back to the use of social media, say in the Arab Spring a couple years ago, you had incredibly innovative uses of new technologies for organizing, for mobilizing, for political protests, for communicating that outfoxed various regimes before those technologies have been applied for the same uses in rich countries. So even though Facebook had been around in the US a few years before it had been around in Egypt, the Egyptians were the ones that actually found it was quite a powerful tool, say. Other than for flash mobs or something. You know what I mean? Which is cool, but different, not as important. Okay, so why might mobile phones affect the development? I want you guys to give me some ideas. Everybody here agrees except for the one person I'm going to find you who, I don't know what my own view is on this. So what are some of the 3 or 4 key channels through which there might be an impact? Yeah.
Financial inclusion, so as you mentioned, mobile money, clouds, or through the transfer money, places where it might not be established banking or infrastructure.
So now I can save money on my SIM card, I can transfer money on my SIM card, I can do all these things that the formal banking system wasn't doing for me, but mobile phones let me do. So again, before there was M-Pesa in Kenya, if I wanted to send a few $100s back, I was a young man living in Nairobi, wanted to send $400 back to my mom in a village in Western Kenya, that was a pain in the ass. I could have done a wire transfer, but it would have taken a big fee. I could have sent somebody, I could have gone myself. It was an incredible waste of time. Now I just go, Eep, and then she goes to a shop 5 minutes away and gets the money. That's an unbelievable reduction in transactions cost. Yeah.
Super fast transfer of information.
So how would that affect development? What would be some application? So definitely, what are some applications of that?
One example would be if I have Cubs and my local market is paying me so much money, and then I call like, a bigger market that's a little far away, they own better price than $100.
Yeah, so this is going to be very much what like Jenny Aker looks at. What you guys saw that all of a sudden, for my economic decision making, I'm going to have better information. I can make hopefully better choices than I could have before. Yeah.
Well, better communication, merchants and businesses can more easily contact suppliers, and there won't be shortages of suppliers, shortages of products.
That's right. So it's not just a small farmer selling their products, but communication all along the supply chain could improve. Yeah. Yeah, so basically the fixed cost of getting a cell phone is very small. The handset is cheap, the SIM card is cheap. Most cell phone companies in sub-Saharan Africa have pay-as-you-go sort of system, so you like top up and then you spend down. And so there's not much infrastructure here that's needed, as opposed to like installing a line, which is a much bigger deal in terms of infrastructure. Yeah.
Well, it's easier to understand how the money goes and how the money comes. So at the end of the month or yearly, have a monthly money report, so we can see how you spend money and how the money goes back.
So that's really interesting. So in addition to being able to save, there's some documentation you can get basically of your transactions that may help you with your own mental accounting or planning, and that's an interesting point. Yeah. Yeah, so it's pretty interesting that basically there are like technology platforms actually both developed in Kenya in 2007. Money transfers in early 2007 with M-Pesa, and then after the contested 2007 election are doing it, the second platform. So we have all these innovations flowing back. And if you think about crisis response in places that are hit by political instability and weather shocks and all the things we've talked about, why poor societies are inherently more vulnerable to instability, crisis response technology is just incredibly valuable. So this could really matter. Yeah.
I think it makes growth more possible in setting poor institutions, and then in turn can feed like a desire or an ability to improve institutions.
So explain more. That sounds interesting, but
so like this idea of you don't need the infrastructure, but typically you need a government to build the infrastructure.
I see.
So you don't need that foundation of quality institutions. You can start growing the assets of it, and then through like the same way that the Arab Spring happened, you can through the access to information, you can then demand more quality institutions.
Okay, last hand. Yeah.
You can get rid of things that score markets like bribery. So in India right now they're trying to computerize the application process of microfinance. So generally you interface with like a person who asks for a ride before they give you a loan. But this kind of like is rid of the price of
So you guys have mentioned great things. So we talked about market efficiency to get better information. That came up. Markets may work better when people actually know where all the prices are. They're going to sell at the right market, et cetera. We talked about reduced transactions.